What's up, everybody, man? Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Expert Mentors Live. This is episode 24, and man, we're super excited to have Steven Wener on with us. But before we hand it over to Steven and dive into today's topic, I just want to kind of refresh your memory a little bit. For those of you tuning in for the first time, you know, Expert Mentors Live is really just the opportunity for us to tap into the horsepower of our Honey Badger Nation, our fast forward movement. There's just so many talented, amazing people in these communities. And what's even cooler is that these people want to add value and give back. And so that's really what Expert Mentors is about. We kick these things off live every Wednesday at noon Central. So you can set your calendar, make sure that you're seeing the notifications, and you know, joining us every Wednesday. We really appreciate it. So like I said, super excited. We've got Steven on, and we're going to talk about the importance of knowing how to lead a conversation. And make sure you guys have your notepad and pen handy, because I know you're going to be stabbing some notes, and I'm ready to dive in. So Steven, man,
Right.
well, I appreciate you taking the time to jump on with us and dive into today's topic. So if you would just kind of give a little background, share with the folks kind of a little bit about yourself, and then you know, let's jump into this interesting topic.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me on. I really appreciate it, John. And for everybody out there, whoever I've got in the room that's Canadian, I am Canadian. I live in San Diego now, and I found an incredible wife that gave me a green card opportunity. So I moved out here in 2008. So I was originally born in Montreal, and then about 1980, moved over to Edmonton, Alberta. So I grew up in the Wild West, where they rode horses, you know, all over kind of openly, and a lot of overalls. So it was a big sticker shock from culture and life. And then met my wife when I was thinking of moving down to Los Angeles. And I was going to go screenwrite. Actually, I was going to take a little break from real estate, go screenwrite in LA, and instead met her and got married 11 months later and tried to decide where we were going to live. And when we were dating, she experienced 40 below and 50 below in Canada and said, there are two options, San Diego or San Diego. So kind of how I got down here.
Oh, San Diego.
And I've been in real estate for about 24 years, and I kind of an accident that I got into it. My dad taught me so much of what I know in sales and people. He owned a renovating company, and my dad grew up in the era where you really had to survive. And so my dad was more of a competitor than a mentor. So, and not in a negative way, it's just what he knew. And when he offered me his business, I said, no. So he said, what about real estate? And I said, that could be interesting. He said, I'll pay for your courses. I said, done. And this is the only career I've ever had. So 24 years later, you know, started in a recession in Canada, moved here in a recession in the US in 2008. And, you know, in a short order, just built up a thriving business through what I want to talk about, which of course is communication. So it's a little bit of my background story, John.
That's fascinating. And, you know, I'm wondering how, if there's a little connection here, kind of with it sounded like a passion to screenwrite, and how that it kind of ties into communication. So I'm interested to try and connect the dots here.
So my dad taught me, one of the things that he taught me was paint them a picture. And when we think or we dream or we imagine in visual. And when you're writing something, one of the screenplays I wrote was a cartoon, and it's called Quick Squirt McGurk and the Condiment Gang, about the fastest milk slinger that would ride his cow Nellie, right? And you can envision that, right? You can envision that.
Yeah.
And when we're doing what we do in our profession, people have to be able to envision what we're talking about. Because if there is no vision, if we're not having a similar vision, we can't lead that conversation for what we want them to see and experience before it's ever happened yet. So that creative element, so many people, so many of us just miss the mark in, it's not about logic. It's all about emotion and visual, music. Like if you listen to opera, I don't understand Italian. And why do I cry, or why do the hairs on my arms stand up? How do we connect? And it's usually by tapping into emotion. and that's what films do. That's what we do in somebody's living room. You know, we're tying into one of the most expensive experiences they're ever about to embark on. And how do we lead them in a way where they're not just comfortable, but in a fraction of the time that they generally build trust with friends, colleagues, we're having to build trust to help them with hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars of their future. And how do we help them visualize what we're going to do with them, not for them, with them? So there really is a correlation to being able to help people see. And when you can creatively write or put anything down artistically, how does that message resonate with whomever we're sharing it with so that they're like, oh my God, that's so powerful, it's amazing. And it all happens through pictures. As my dad said, paint them a picture.
I love that. That is awesome. So this is kind of really ingrained in you, right, from your dad, and then it just carried over.
Yes.
Happened to be real estate where you're tied into. So let's kind of fast forward and, you know, dive into a little bit of how this communication style and the best practice that you can share and give to everybody that's tuning in with us.
Of course. So first things first, I can't teach you to be a professional. You have to be hungry to be a professional. You have to want to learn about your craft because information is power. And the reason I'm prefacing with that is because if I went and talked about aerospace, I'd have no idea what I'd be talking about. And I would, you know myself to death. So one of the most powerful things that we did in our office, and I'm not sure if Kyle has ever shared this with you, but we would do role play for years. We would call in Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it was a buyer call. Tuesday, Thursday, it was a seller call. And we would always have these scenarios. And I always knew enough about real estate to have a great conversation with people, but I didn't know how I sounded, how I was showing up. I would just give information. And I'm prefacing with immersion because whatever I'm going to share with you, you can take the notes, but if you don't do anything about it, I'm just letting you know this isn't going to do anything for you, just like anything else, right? So imagine if you really worked on this for a few months, because I also study the sciences behind brain mapping, neural pathways, how the brain hardens at about 25, and everything that we're going to talk about, I'm prefacing with a little bit of science so that take these notes, but work on it. And the way to start leading these conversations with people is to understand how to have a conversation. And I teach something called a communication code. That's a book that I'm doing my last revision on and a program that I teach. And it all starts with what I call a qualifying or a business acronym. And I'm not sure if you've heard LP Mama before, either through Tom Ferry or other people, but have you heard that acronym before, John? LP Mama?
No.
Okay. So this is where you really want to take notes because I'm going to teach you the framework. And LP Mama stands for location, price, mortgage, agent, motivation, and appointment. And I'll go through that again. But I'll dive into it so that I'm not just touching on the acronym. But we want to know the location. So if you get a sign call or somebody calls in an online lead or whatever it might be, and you know, in my world in San Diego, let's just say it's Carlsbad. So I know that they've inquired about Carlsbad, but I'm going to ask them if there are any secondary areas that they're also interested in. Oh yeah, I'm also looking in Encinitas, parts of San Marcos, right, for surrounding cities. And I'm going to dive deeper into this a little bit later about the story that they're telling you, because there's always a, why do you want to be in Carlsbad, possibly San Marcos, Encinitas, right? Let's get the story. So we now our location. Now we're going to ask about the price. The property is $850,000. Is that the budget you're looking to work within? So as you can see, this framework is allowing me to ask the right questions, and then I just put a hard stop and let them talk about it. Yeah, 850 is kind of ambitious for me. I'm really looking to be around 700,000. I'm like, okay, perfect. And then I lead right into the next one. Mortgage. Are you planning on paying cash for the property, or were you financing it? And if so, have you already spoken with a mortgage professional to help you with that piece? And then you find out the story. And lenders, I don't care what we say, money's first, right? No matter what we want to do, if they can't fund what they need to do in order to get across the finish line, the cart's before the horse. So when we talk about the cash or the mortgage, that has to be number one. Even though it's third in order, we want to know where they are. Oh, my credit's shot, I need to do this. Whatever you find out in that story, this is how we continue to lead the conversation. My credit's shot, And human behavior is we're embarrassed, right? Most people are embarrassed to share reality, especially if it's not perfect. So when you dive into these things, and later on I'm going to touch about tonality and the way to resonate with people to create trust and connection through how we're showing up verbally. So when we're talking, we always want to empower people through the process, even if they're not comfortable sharing the process. So once we move past the mortgage, so we have LPM, location, price, mortgage. Now we're going to talk about an agent. And I always call it a professional, and I throw in a little bit of NLP when I do that. If you want to look at the screen, John, I'll always just go like this. Is there a professional like myself while I'm nodding my head that's helping you through the process? And then all depending on how they say yes or no, yeah, or yeah, I'm good, or no, this was my first property. All depending on how they answer you will also be able to dictate the future of this conversation. If they say it with a punch, like with a downswing, no, I'm good, I've got somebody. You might dig into it a little bit, but the reality of that tone is you now know that they probably have somebody they're super comfortable with versus, yeah. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Yeah. Well, I walked into an open house 3 weeks ago and somebody's emailing me stuff and okay, have they followed up with you? No. So what you're saying is you're just getting stuff, but no one's helping you, right?
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Can you touch on that? What you just did that I think is so important when you're on the phone having these conversations that you're still using the body language, like you pointed to, like to yourself, but how important that is to even when you're on the phone to do that, right? Because how that comes across. I want to make sure everybody caught that. That was big.
Yeah, because when you start to embed these automatic tones that you're putting in your voice, or the things that you want the subconscious to pick up on, or even head nodding, or it doesn't sound like you're working with somebody that's truly taking care of you. While you're saying no, you're exuding that. They can hear those things, just like if I talk with a smile on my voice, right? And I change that. And what's so powerful is that we hear that, but we don't practice it. That's why I prefaced all of this in the beginning with you must immerse yourself into understanding how you're showing up. What do you sound like? So when we move past is there a professional that's currently helping you in this process, then I want to know their motivation. Are you owning? Are you renting? If you're renting, are you month to month? Did your landlord give you notice? Did you just sign a 12-month lease? Do you want to keep your house as a rental if you want to buy something else? Now that brings us back to the lender, right? Have you spoken to your financial professional to make sure your debt to income ratio is where it needs to be to do that? And so I teach this framework because without the framework, you're lost in conversation number one. Number two, you're going to yourself to death. And on these role play calls, when I lead these role play calls with people that I train or companies, I'm counting with my hand how many times people are going, and I'll go, okay, great call. I wanted to let you know about some of the great things you said, but were you aware that you said, 14 times? And they're like, what? So we don't even know how we're showing up. And that's why for me, having a roadmap, your own personal GPS to where you're going is critical to your success. Because if you don't know where you're going, your passengers are going to be pretty lost, upset, want to get out of the car and find somebody else that's going to get them to their destination in the fashion that they were hoping to get there.
Love it. That's awesome. So, so you talk about motivation. Was there one more piece, or was that the last part of the framework?
The last one is A, which is really setting the appointment. So the A is for appointments. And now that you're setting an appointment, there's a lady that called me off one of my signs the other day, 3 days ago. And what I discovered, what was going to be a 1-minute phone call when I told her it was pending, and she said, hey, I'm not doing this for 2 years, turned into a 25-minute phone call with her telling me exactly what she's looking for, exactly where she's working, that she wants to transfer, talked about REO and short sale. Hey, maybe if an opportunity does come up, I'll move sooner. Engaged her where I said, look, and this is a statement I use, which is very powerful. I said, in 24 months from now, I'm going to have you over-prepared for the process. So instead of just checking back whenever you think you might be ready with me, how about I just keep staying in touch with you, show you what the state of the market's doing based on the videos that I put together monthly. And then anything and everything you want to know about real estate, you've got somebody that's going to help you manage this process. So if you're someone that wants to be over-prepared when the time is right for you, I would love to be the person that helps you get there. So, and then, we had a great conversation, and that's the way the conversations normally go, because I'm not creating we have to work together. It's an expectation of, I'm here to serve you. And by having real conversations through LP Mama, and then I'll move into the two other parts that I teach that you need to master, which is everything is mirroring and matching, right? So if you were talking like a fast New Yorker, I'm talking like a fast New Yorker. If you're starting to swear, I'm starting to swear. If you're prim and proper, I'm prim and proper. But when you know how to lead the conversation because you've put the framework there for them, the other important part that I forgot to touch on is it's a 30-70 type conversation. I'm doing 30% of the talking. They're doing 70% of the talking, right? I'm not selling them, I'm listening so I can navigate. And then once I understand things, then I can also use tonality, cadence, upswing, downswings, things like that to really move the conversation along while we're building trust through a professional conversation with empathy. One of my clients recently had to move to an area because of a special needs son. And so we really had to focus on the schools, so however you learn to be in rhythm with your clients, because we connect with people that are more like us, lead them down a professional path while being vulnerable to the conversation, meaning humanize it. Express who you are. You're not just a servant. You're a human being with experiences. And we like to connect based on experiences. And when you do all of those things, then I move into the third part, which is empowering language. And how many times have you ever heard this, John, where people will be like, this is a waste of time. I don't think I could, this is just total waste of time. How many times have you heard people use that phrase?
Yeah, right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to jumping back in and saying, I don't ever believe there's a waste of time. If I'm the person that helps you get to where you want to be, regardless of the time, is that what you're interested in? Like I said, because time is of no relevance to me, but your credit might not be where you want it. I have a credit repair person. You feel lost in the mortgage process? Let me get you over to a true professional because I work with the top 1% in lending, right? When you start to add value, then the self-defense mechanisms that we carry forward, which is just the way our lizard's brain work, we're always trying to survive. We're always looking for that, oh my God, and that's why so many people are even afraid to get on the phone. They think they're going to die from that automatic part of the lizard brain that hits them, yeah. Right? Which when you dig into it, there's no truth to it.
None.
But that's how we react, right? So empowering language for me is so critical because it shows people that you care, right? We are going to do this. What do you really want to experience in this whole process? What's really important to you? And let them share, right? Have them open up, because that's all we want to do is be heard. And one other thing that I teach about how we connect is there's 4 pieces. And what's funny is there was an agent that used to work for me, and he told me that Volvo, he used to work for Volvo, taught 3 of the 4. And everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to be acknowledged. Everybody wants to be understood. And then everybody wants to be taken care of. And that's why we hire someone in the end, is because we know they're going to take care of us. But if you and I were talking and I was never looking at this screen, right, then you'd be like, what the hell? And right now, while I'm talking and you're taking notes, you're nodding your head while I'm watching you, you're engaging in what I'm saying, and your physiology is telling me that, yes, this makes sense. And if we were having an engaging conversation where I had to figure something out for you in the real estate process, once I fully understood your story, I would repeat it back to you, all the highlights, so that you knew I understood you. And if I dropped enough of professional content on you, you now know I'm going to take care of you while we also humanize the process. And then you don't have to look elsewhere anymore, because that's all we're looking for. Let me ask you this. Why do we hire service providers? Forget about real estate, John, but why do we hire anybody in another field? A painter, somebody, that works in a car dealership? Why do we engage that person and like them? Why do we do those things?
Out of my expertise, right? And it's their skill set, it's their ability to get the job done. When I know it'd be a waste of my time and money to do it when I can hire somebody to get it done right, and I trust that they're going to get the job done. They're solving the solution, right? I'm not looking for a drill bit. I just need a hole, and so
right,
it's exactly what we're looking for.
And share an experience with everybody that's listening to us, something that happened to you, whether it's your favorite restaurant, something you bought, but tell myself and the listeners, what type of experience did you go through that's memorable to you about how someone served you? Yeah,
one of the most recent, right? Like for me, so I'm training for first Ironman, and I'm 41 years old, and I haven't been on a bike since I was 12 years old, maybe 13 years old, right? And so I was lost, right? So I ended up stumbling into a local bike shop, and there was a gentleman that walked up to me, and he just started asking questions. And, having enough training and understanding from professionalism, our belief in being a true expert advisor and asking questions. I love this, the 30-70, you're spot on. Definitely agree with that. Asking questions and listening. This gentleman did that. And I bet he spent an hour and a half, and he was just listening, asking questions, my goals, what I'm able to, where I'm at, my experience, my training, everything. And throughout the whole process, he could have upsold me on, a bike that I ended up paying. He could have 10x'd me, right? I would have trusted him, but he listened and he did the right thing. And he ended up finding a bike at another shop that was on a closeout because it was a last year's model for a fraction of the cost. And come to find out, he was the general manager of the whole store. And he never threw title. He never threw any authority like that around. He just came in as a true expert advisor, asking questions, listening, prescribing, saying, man, we could go this route. We could go that. It's not worth the investment. It's he's giving me options, but he was making them, to where what made the most sense. And, I think we've all had those type of experiences, and it's one that it's just like, if you could lay out the perfect situation, that was like the perfect situation for me. And it was really powerful.
So here's what I want to dig into with you about that experience. Share with the listeners, what about that resonated with you? What made you feel so comfortable in that process?
Right. He was listening, trying to get clear on what my goals were. He didn't have an agenda. He had a framework, a process that he was going through to determine what was going to be the best fit, giving my desired outcome. And that really resonated with me, is that, and I knew right away what he was doing, but it was like, it doesn't matter. It didn't matter.
Right?
Did not.
It doesn't matter that you know what they're doing.
Yep.
So that's the point. It's not like you're being sold, because your internal barometer was never sitting there going, oh, this is bullshit. Oh, this is bullshit. Oh, this is bullshit. Right? That's why if we're doing 70-30, if we're doing 70% of the talking, then we're selling. Then it sounds like bullshit, because we're not inquiring. Right? So your experience is exactly what I'm talking about. And so many of us miss the point. And guaranteed, he humanized the experience, meaning you got to know him as a person in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
He wasn't just talking about all the technical parts of it, but this is the crank and this is this and this is no. And at the end, he also found you more value than you ever expected by going out of his way to find something that was like a stellar bike at a fraction of the cost. Which now, if I had to ask you this one question, which I already know, if you had to refer him, would you?
I already have, 4 or 5
right?
already. I do want to bring up one point to kind of to talk about my experience to this process framework that you shared, and how real this really is. And so you were talking about in the mortgage piece of it, right? People have their guard up, right? They don't want to be vulnerable. They maybe a little bit of embarrassment. They don't really know how to share.
Yep.
And so when I was there at the shop, I just had this feeling as like, man, why am I like cautious and embarrassed to tell this guy that I had never been on a bike in, over 25 plus years? Why do I have this fear? What the hell is going on here? Right. So that would just make me think about that experience to what you were talking about, because that's real. And I think sometimes when we're trying to talk to so many people that we forget that there's another human being that we're trying to connect to on the other side. So that was a really powerful distinction there.
Part of it really is the ego. Like when we jump into anything that we're not used to, our ego will jump into self-defense, right? And I'm big on just being self-aware when my bullshit meter for myself is trying to come out and talk to people. If it's something I'm not very familiar with or new to me, like we don't want to seem like we're the newbie that has no idea. We don't want to be that. But the reality is that when we try to be that person, then we're acting out of character, and we're just not showing up the same way. But when you don't even have to think about it and go, dude, I haven't been on a bike since I was 13. I know my ass is probably going to hurt because that's what I keep hearing from my friends, but just do what you got to do. But here's really where I'm at. I have no idea what I'm doing and I need your help. Cool. Let me do that for you. As opposed to, I got this. I'm all that. I know a Campanello, and you start talking parts like Shimano when you don't know what you're talking about. You're just pulling stuff out of your ass. And why? And it's all because we just want to look good. But the reality is that look good, smoke and mirrors, is only going to last a second, because that guy dove so far into your wants, needs, goals, what do you need, that you were going to have to let that smoke screen go anyway, right? And he would have discovered it later. And that's the thing. We're all going to be called out if we're trying to act or pretend like we're something that we're not. So why not just let it be? And it's not like somebody's going to go, I'm not going to sell you. Like, you haven't been on a bike since you were 13. You suck, man. Get out of my store. And that's what we're afraid of is going to happen. And that's the furthest thing from reality that's going to happen. But somehow we go there mentally, we just do that. It's a default.
Yep. So that's the big key, kind of what, and I hope everybody listening and tuning in is the distinction is that, you've got a real human being that you're connecting with, and you have to understand kind of the stories that they're telling themselves and kind of what's going on. So that was huge. Do you have, so Steven, this has been amazing. And for any of you guys tuning in or watching the recording later, if you have any questions, feel free to chime in, throw it in the Q&A, throw it here in the chat box. Or if, like I said, if you're watching the replay, throw it in the comments and, make sure, Steven will be tagged, I'll be tagged. We'll definitely get your questions answered. But you gave us a great framework as if, the initial conversation. After the appointment's set, is there a framework that you like to follow to keep you on track as when you're on the appointment face-to-face or, however that appointment is taking place? Is there a framework that you like to use to kind of keep you on track as well?
Just so I'm crystal clear, when you say keep me on track of future communication, moving them forward.
Yeah, keeping them moving forward, right? So like, you have, the LP Mama, which is fantastic. You're talking about the roadmap being absolutely critical to success. This gets us to the appointment. Is there another roadmap you like to follow to keep, when you're actually on the appointment?
So one of the things that as human beings, I believe we all want is when someone tells us they're going to do something, do it immediately, right? So when we finish that conversation on the telephone before we meet face to face, already start the engagement. Set up your MLS search or your IDX feed through your CRM. Text them and email them and let them know how excited you are to embark on the process with them. Get them engaged. Show them that you're showing up immediately, so that when you do actually meet them, whether it's face-to-face in their living room, it's a listing appointment or a buyer, I meet a lot of first-time buyers at the property, or even seasoned buyers at the property. I'm not always, get them into the office and meet them and sit down with them. So I've already started engaging them immediately. And when I finish my phone call with them, I let them know that, hey, 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days from now, if you have any questions, any thoughts, anything you ever want to know from this moment forward about real estate, I'm here. Even if we just hang up and we didn't touch on something, I'm here for you. So I start just building the framework that immediately I'm there. And then I start implementing what I said I was going to do immediately, so that they start getting properties. They hear from me right away with an email that shows them that I'm excited to walk the journey with them, so that when we do actually meet face to face for the first time, it's not like I'm a stranger. I've already been engaging them and demonstrating the trust that I built initially and followed through with my word. So it's really about constant check-ins with them and not letting distance or space happen, because that's when, as easily as you can create the engagement, it's just as critical to pay attention that it can fall apart as quickly. So for me, it's all about constant engagement, so they know I'm there.
I love
that.
that.
So that really is more of it than anything.
Got it. That's huge, right? And I know Kyle had mentioned the power of video coming off of setting these appointments, and just a quick message. Is that kind of a standard practice for you on that as well?
At times, it's not like 100% implemented in what I do with using BombBomb, and I use BombBomb a lot. But the way I show up on the phone and create that engagement, I hear if I have their trust. One of the things I didn't touch on, because in the communication code that I teach, it's more than those first 3 steps, right? The framework, LP Mama, mirroring and matching, and just empowering language. I also teach the power of physiology. So the things to pay attention to as well, where, going back to the video that I could demonstrate, but it's more of a, hey, Steve, this was great. That's the video portion, but I'm always listening for physiological cues. So I know, even if I don't send a video, I still got them, because if I said something to you while I was working on the qualifying piece that was out of alignment, this is probably what I'm going to hear. I don't know if you could even hear that, like breath, but people's physiology will change immediately. So if I'm face to face with you versus converting phone call, because I could be working an open house, right? You walk in, we go through the qualifying process. You're telling me a story, but your body is telling me a different story. Once you've really worked on those first 3 pieces, your body language and engagement is going to tell me what your real story is, if it's out of alignment with what your words are telling me. So that as we move through that engagement and we've built trust, and something happened with your physiology where it went from this to, or a micro movement with your eyes, or a twitch, or all of a sudden your body turns away from me, and I call that out. I go, John, something just happened. And you're like, what? I go, I just said something that was out of alignment with where you are, and I'm not sure what that is, but it'll be really challenging for me to proceed if I don't understand what just happened. You're like, and then I'll dig it out of them. So the video component that you're talking about, just to show myself showing up, isn't as important to me, because I've trained so hard in how to connect. For other people, that might be extremely relevant, and I highly, highly suggest doing that. But I know when I have somebody, right? So that extra step is nice, but the email or the text that I send out has been enough, and I've never had an issue. But I would highly suggest the video. And I'm just creating a distinction because of, I know when I have my client. I know when that prospect has become my client. Does that make sense?
Absolutely does. I want you to unpack something real quick for everybody tuning in. That what do you think is so hard for people to call out that potential prospect out on the alignment, like you said, the body language? Because a lot of people they'll see it, but they won't bring it up. What's stopping people from doing that?
And I shared the answer with everybody already, which is, what was the first thing that I said before I went into anything? What was the way I opened up this whole phone call?
Take action.
You need to be you need to be a professional, right? So if you're a professional and you immerse yourself in learning these techniques, then you're not going to yourself to death, because you're lost in the process. So when you immerse yourself in this, which I know all of you will, because that's what you're going to do right after we finish this webinar, you're going to immerse yourself in this, right? I hope so.
Yes.
But once you Once you don't have to do those things anymore, then you can pay attention to body language. See, that's the difference, is that when we're searching, we're in our own head. And when we're in our own head, we're not engaged with you. And if I'm not engaged with you, I'm not picking up on micro movements or details or breathing patterns or eye movement, because I'm in my own head. I'm not in your head. So when you go through that process and you know exactly where you're going, because you know your acronym, you know how to mirror and match that person, you know how to use empowering and engaging language, now I can watch you. That's really it.
And so it's really just not knowing the next step, not knowing what to say, not knowing how to call them out when they see this.
Absolutely.
And they let them off the hook. That makes a lot of sense. You know, one of the things, and you triggered it again. I was gonna ask you about on the empowering language is you mentioned it. I hopefully everybody caught it in that using words of we, as us, working through this together instead of here's what I'm going to do for you.
Correct.
So that was huge.
Yeah. And even like the most basic thing, and here's for everybody, I'd like a referral on all the listings you're going to get from this, right? So send me your 25%. But before you even go into your listing presentation, put it down, engage them a little bit and go, I have this entire package that I'm going to go over with you to make sure I demonstrate what we do as a team. But before I do any of that, what's important to you? And then just relax, let them talk. What do we want to do as consumers? We want people to understand what we want, what's important, right? And what fascinates me, absolutely fascinates me in the worst possible way, but I find it so fascinating, is if a client tells me, I want to live in North County, San Diego, and then I, as a professional, say, I've got something right by the border of Mexico. Something will absolutely fit you right by the border of Mexico. I'm like, how does that happen? How do we do that? How are we so disengaged with what the client just told you? And we do those things, right? So just being present, showing up, that's why I said everybody wants to be heard, acknowledged, understood, and then taken care of. Understood doesn't mean, oh, you want to be in North County? Let's get you in Chula Vista, right by the border. How's that? What? Right? That would be their reaction. Pardon? So just listen. They tell you everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I think you nailed it right there, is that, not doing enough listening, right? And too focused on their own agenda. I love out of your head into your heart, right? Being able to really connect with them is really powerful. So Don was asking, once you've met with them, are you using a loyalty agreement?
I don't, and a lot of people may disagree, but I'm of the mindset that, look, if you sign up for a buyer broker representative agreement and we're on paper and I'm not doing my job, or I didn't create expectations, it's on me. And there's no reason that my clients should be locked into me if my service sucks. Have I lost a couple of transactions? Less than 5, probably in 24 years that I've ever done this, with somebody who was like, oh, I walked into a new home community and I didn't know. So what did I learn? Hey, by the way, I don't want to just think that it's all about the money, but if you're about to walk into a new home community, they're really sticky about the agent representing you being there the first time to walk you in, and just make sure that that person's there with you. So if new homes are on the agenda for you as well, mixed in with what I'm sending you, I just have to say this, because if I don't, you might walk in, call me later, and then I can't be engaged with you. So please understand that from the beginning. And that's exactly how I would say it. And if you heard my language, it wasn't salesy, it wasn't pitchy, it wasn't all about the money. It was, hey, I need to let you know this. But if I'm doing my job right, I don't believe that I need a piece of paper to keep a consumer with me. Because if they went somewhere else, A, I didn't do my job right, and B, I wouldn't want that person as a client anyway because they're shifty, right? I build relationships with my clients. I don't build contracts with my clients.
I love that, man. That's good. That's good right there. And for all of you guys that are in new home markets, man, you need to make sure you capture that, and that needs to be part of the communication. I know we deal with it here in North Dallas. I mean, it's new construction everywhere. So that was a bit of
And you have to preface it, right? Not from a selfish way, but if they love you and they trust you and they want to work with you and you're it, then even if they feel horrible that they walked into their dream home and you weren't there and you can't participate, they're still going to move forward with buying their dream home because that's what they were after in the first place. They won't feel great initially, but that will pass for them. And you're going to learn a lesson that you don't want to repeat very often because you're trying to take care of your livelihood, your family. So it's important, but it's important in how you deliver that message. Not salesy, not pitchy, not commission breath, not anything. It's just like, hey, I need you to please understand and recognize this is how my industry works, and from there.
Yeah, educate them. They just don't know, right?
That's exactly right.
It's
not their fault.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It's one of the principles that, we really follow and live by is, always assume positive intent. People have the best of intentions. They just may not know. So it's your job as the professional, which I love, really being the professional and to educate them on the process and how things really work. So it's 100-0 as well, right? If they do go off, we've done differently.
Yeah. There's just as an example for the most basic thing in the world, which I still felt was my fault years ago. I had an elderly client and she was buying a property. I was her buyer's agent. And then it was time to pay for the home inspection. And she's like, I have to pay for the home inspection? You don't pay for the home inspection? I'm like, oh, I truly apologize. I didn't let you know that that's your representative. You're hiring an independent inspector to go through the house on your behalf. For liability purposes and things like that, I can't really pay for your inspector. It does, I have to go there, but I still looked at it that it was my fault for the super basic question and things that I would never assume somebody would think, I'm paying for my home inspection, but that's on me. As basic as it is, it's our responsibility, as you mentioned, to let people know, to create an expectation. So then from there, I developed a buyer flow chart and a seller flow chart because I never wanted to have those holes fall into my world again. I needed to let people know and never assume that people know, ever. Because I'm the professional, not them. They're hiring me, not the other way around.
John Cheplack shared with us, never assume intelligence for another person. So that's always good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any of you guys have any other questions, anything that's kind of on your mind? I know this stuff is deep, but this stuff is powerful, and this is what will separate you and really position you as a true professional. This is absolute gold. So if you guys have any other questions or anything for Steven, throw them in. Any final things that you want to kind of, really help maybe put a bow on all of this for everybody that you want to share?
Yes. First of all, being a professional takes work. And I use the word professional when I describe myself in my profession. I am a professional. I'm not a glorified door opener. That was the best compliment given to me by one of my investor clients years ago. He said, you're the first person I met in real estate that isn't a glorified door opener. And I looked at him and I said, that's probably the best compliment I ever got. Because, what do we do? Oh, this is the living room. Oh, this is the kitchen. Forget that. I'm looking up and down and all around the house to point out things that aren't obvious, right? I'm looking to do my job differently. So it takes immersion into understanding your craft, not just immersion in learning how to communicate and talk to people, but learning about your profession. Just I grew up in Canada, there were basements. I moved here, there are no basements, right? So where's the plumbing? It's in the slab. What happens when you have slab leaks? How do you get to that stuff? Understand what to look for, point things out for people. Learn. Like if you're expecting to make 6 figures, 7 figures in this business, seriously, without doing any work, and yet we have an expectation, dive into everything. There's so much free content. What you're putting out there just for free, hopping onto all the Tom Ferry coaching things that are out there, finding mentors, joining a great office and having people that can lead you to gold immediately instead of years because you thought you could do it your own way. But you have to be hungry for knowledge. You have to be hungry for knowledge. If you want to serve people, even anyone in a religious setup, right, whether they're a pastor or a rabbi, whatever it might be, those people aren't just standing up there preaching what was written in religious context without knowing the context and understanding how to dive into it. So where a lot of people go every Sunday or Saturday or Friday night, depending on what religion you are, Why is that person up there teaching you? And how are you using the material that they're reading to tell parables and stories and things like that? You're like, oh, wow, oh my God, that's what you are. That's what we do. We're literally on a pulpit for our clients. And that's the way I see myself. If I'm going to be preaching to them about stuff that's going to take care of them or make them see, I better know what I'm doing, and I better work hard so that I can do that and incorporate that into my fabric. Without that, what am I? I'm a glorified door opener. So work hard.
That's huge. And, you know, exactly what you said at the beginning too. I had a conversation with the gentleman that had kind of a life shaking, altering experience that he invested in over a period of time. And one of the things was, you know, not just when you whatever religion, wherever you're going, right? Even sitting on this call, right? But the story that he was sharing is, you know, sitting in church with his son, but really trying to dissect and understand what he's learning and taking notes. And then how do you put that into play? What is useful? What is not? And I think that's just a great lesson. You know, what he shared, what you just shared, hopefully everybody's on. You know, I kind of joke, you know, get your notepad. But you know, it really is. What are you pulling out? And then what can you apply right away and take action on that's going to help you be much more of a professional than what you already are. So it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Man. You're right. Great stuff.
Thank you. And just even for the listeners, watch this. Take your yellow notepad and put it up to your camera. Show people what you've done.
Yeah. Well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 4 pages of notes. So
right. But the simple point that I want to make is for you, and there's a lot of people that you get to speak to, you know, by having this webinar and this access, right? And you, even though you're seasoned and you're in a position of power, right? Like if I really acknowledge who you are and what you're doing and part of the network that you're in a position of power. But what you just showed everybody is regardless of where you find yourself in your trajectory, you're still open to learning, right? No matter what stage we're at. And if I can leave everybody with one thing, is just be open to being humble and accepting knowledge and being open to implementing it, because we're never through learning, ever. And that's why I wanted to show, even though I didn't know that you took 4 pages, right? But you're demonstrating that regardless of what you know, you're still looking to improve on what you do. And you get all of this access to people that share what we do in our business, and then you can put it all together, right? We're never done learning. We're never too good to learn more. We can always share, but we're never too good to learn more. So I'm grateful that you took notes as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Great. So how can everybody connect with you? I know you said you've got the book coming out. How can they get, you know, if they want to connect on the courses that you're teaching, what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, if you want to just send an email to my regular email, which is Steven with a V, STEVEN at SD, like San Diego, soldbysteve.com. So Steven at SD, soldbysteve.com, and just put in the header communication code. Just put that in there, communication code, and then write whatever you want in the body of the email. But I'll know how to address it, and my assistant will pick those up as well. And regardless, I mean, if you guys have any questions as well, I teach at both real estate boards in San Diego. Like, I just love being an open book because of all the things that I learned. There's no point keeping it all tied up for myself, because there is no competition amongst professionals. We just share, and whoever wins the client for whatever resonated with that client. But whatever you want to learn, whatever I can help you with, please just send me a message, and it's my pleasure to help.
I love it, man. And, you know, for all of you listening in, I mean, you know, Steven also makes things happen. And, you know, I know you've helped a tremendous amount of families over your career. And so I really appreciate you taking the time. Amazing call. Thank you for adding value and really being a true expert mentor and helping everybody out today. For all of you guys on the call, listening to this live or listening to the recording, when we get this posted back up in the Facebook group, make sure you guys give some love for Steven, share some of your biggest takeaways, any questions, anything that you have. We love the engagement, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time to tune in. And if you feel like, you've got something burning that you want to add value back to the communities, man, reach out to me. We would love to have you on an episode of Expert Mentors Live coming soon. Cool. Steven, man, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you guys all tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
I'm grateful. Thank you, John.